Can everybody hear me out there? Yes. Okay, we're good. Okay, welcome everyone. Litquake's 22nd year, San Francisco's Literary Festival. I'm Jody Weiner, board president, and I just want to say that we are really glad to be back outside doing events again. And so thank you all for coming and for supporting us for so many years and making Litquake not just a Bay Area institution, but known around the world in maybe 14, 15 countries for promoting literacy and bringing artists, writers, and readers together. So, most of you also probably know that we're a small, local nonprofit, and we depend upon all of your largesse pretty much for our existence. So I just want you to know, as you probably do, that this is a precarious time for artists and art organizations. The festival this year is going to go on until October 23rd, and there are probably 40 or 45 more events, both online and in person, that are going to take place before the Lit Crawl next Saturday. So when you go online to litquake.org to check out the schedule, please click over to the donation page and maybe drop a few dollars for us, and that would really help us out. And who knows, you might even feel better about it. There are some donation buckets here tonight also for you to go ahead and make some donations as well. But tonight, we are really honored to present the Straight No Chaser Writers at the Bar, and which has become another Litquake institution for probably, we think now, 15 years, promoted by both Vesuvios, so thank you to them, and City Lights is also providing the book table out there. So this event has also become an institution over the years. And now I just want to introduce you to a great lineup that we have tonight. It's Vanessa Hua, A.H. Kim, Roberto Lovato, Caitlin Myer, Maggie Tokuda-Hall, and Alia Volz. So I'm going to get out of here, but now I want to introduce our lovely and intrepid host, Alia Volz. She's been emceeing this now for, you think, 10 years already? Have you been here that many years, it seems like? Sure. And she's the author of a wonderful book, which if you haven't read it, you really should get it. It's called Home Baked, My Mom, Marijuana, and the Stoning of San Francisco. It was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award, a winner of the 2020 Golden Poppy Nonfiction Book Award. Her essays have appeared in the New York Times, Bon Appetit, Lit Hub, Salon, the Best Women's Travel Writing, and the Best American Essays. So please say hello to Alia Volz.
Oh, it's okay.
Is it okay?
I won't lick it. I promise.
You should change your mind.
Maybe I should lick the mic. I don't know. Thank you so much, Jody. That was delightful, as you always are. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is a really special night for me. I mean, it's always a special night. Every time we do Straight No Chaser, it's my favorite night of the year. But tonight is especially particularly exquisite because we have all been through the shitstorm that was 2020 and most of 2021, and we haven't been able to gather in person very often, and so this just feels especially nurturing. And before we do anything else, I want to heartily thank Vesuvio and Janet and City Lights Books and Litquake for making a safe outdoor space where we can do this, right? So we have no fear in this space, and that's really precious right now. I wanted to do something a little bit different for this year's Straight No Chaser, specifically because of what we've been through. One of the minor tragedies of the pandemic, this is very low on the totem pole of pandemic tragedies, befell the authors who launched books in that year. We didn't get to have a big party with all of our friends and family to celebrate what we'd been working on, some of us for 10, 15 years. We didn't get to go on book tour. We didn't get to, do all the fun things that come after the hard work. And of course, in a pandemic, that's the least of anyone's concerns, and you feel like a jerk for crying about it, but we all cried. We all cried. To a one, we cried. So for most of us, this is our first in-person reading. And I wanted to specifically focus this lineup for Straight No Chaser on artists who launch books at the height of the pandemic. So these are mostly spring and summer books of 2020. These are people who didn't get to properly celebrate. And I thought, you know what, let's have a party for this. So that's why we're here. And with you all out here, that really makes it really feels festive. It really feels like a party. So thank you. Let's get to it. One of the things that emerged out of the pandemic that became really clear is who in the writing community are the true literary citizens. So there were people in the writing world who immediately and repeatedly stepped up to support their fellow authors, who devoted their social media time to boosting other authors and trying to uplift the community as a whole. It's really one of the things we talk about as the silver lining, is how much we connected as a community. And so it's really fitting that the first reader tonight is one of the finest literary citizens I know, who really put her heart into uplifting others. So yeah, it makes me really happy to present her here tonight. She's the debut author of A Good Family, which Maureen Corrigan of the Washington Post described as a lively suspense diversion, and didn't we all need that? And don't we still? A Good Family was inspired by her personal experiences supporting her brother and family while his wife served time in Alderson Women's Prison. She was featured in Poets and Writers as one of 5 authors over 50 who published their debut book in 2020. Oh, we're just going to keep going. And as a lawyer, a community volunteer, and a member of the Writers Grotto, she writes under the name A.H. Kim. Please welcome her.
Thank you so much, Alia, talk about literary citizen. You write the book on that one, no pun intended. Everything is true and nothing is true. That's what I like to say about my book, A Good Family. Like Alia said, A Good Family is based on my true life experience supporting my brother and his children while his wife served an 8-year term at Alderson Women's Prison, the same prison where Martha Stewart spent time. Not at the same time. The following excerpt takes place early in the book and is a flashback to the narrator Hannah's 40th birthday. It's a toast delivered by her younger brother Sam, and it's based on a true story. Friends, countrymen, lend me your ears, Sam shouts, because tonight is a very special night. It's not only the end of summer, the end of our 1-week bender, it's also my older sister Hannah's 40th birthday. Several people turn around to find me tucked near the back of the party. They encourage me to come forward to the fire pit and stand next to Sam. I've always hated being the center of attention, even on my birthday. But I take comfort in knowing Sam's speech won't be about me. It'll be about him. It's always about him. In honor of Hannah's birthday, Sam says, slurring his words slightly, I want to tell you all the story of how I came to be conceived. Chuckles ripple through the crowd. Everyone already knows the story, you drunk motherfucker, a male voice heckles amiably. The group erupts in laughter. It's true. Sam has a repertoire of stories, much as an actor has a repertoire of roles. How Sam was conceived is his Hamlet, My parents moved to the U.S. from South Korea so my father could get his Ph.D. in linguistics, Sam continues undeterred. Like the good, healthy, horny young people that they were, my parents quickly and easily conceived Hannah, their firstborn, who grew into a smart and hard-working little girl, every immigrant's parent's dream. This line gets a lot of hoots and hollers. I'm pretty sure the crowd's enthusiasm is for the horny parents, not the hard-working little girl. When she started kindergarten, Hannah jumped out of bed every morning, eager to go to school and learn. But one day, a couple of months into the school year, Hannah complained of a stomach ache and refused to leave her bed. The next day, Hannah did the same thing. My mom was baffled. Even though most people at the party have heard this story countless times, they're quiet, paying close attention, listening as if they didn't already know the ending. That's the power of my brother's personality. Finally, my mother forced Hannah to go to school, and then she hid in the bushes during recess to see what would happen. And there she was, Hannah, their perfect daughter, sitting by herself on the playground bench, the only Asian child in a sea of white faces. I look around at Sam and Beth's friends, the sea of white faces, and wonder if any of them see the irony. I'm sure Sam doesn't. My mom decided then and there she would have another child so Hannah wouldn't be so lonely. Only this time it wasn't as easy for the young couple, and it took them several years of concerted fucking to conceive me. More hoots and hollers confirm it's the horny parents and not the hardworking little girl who are the crowd pleasers. So, in honor of your 40th birthday, my dear big sister and lifelong friend, the pride of my parents and the precious diamond of the Min family, I present to you this modest token of my affection, my adoration, and my appreciation. Sam hands me an instantly recognizable Tiffany blue gift bag to a chorus of oohs and ahs. Inside is a small velvet-lined box containing the most beautiful diamond stud earrings. I stand on my tippy toes to hug Sam, who wraps his strong arms around me, and it feels like home. I take in a deep breath of Sam's familiar woodsy cologne. His friends and family all applaud. It's the happiest moment of my life. In real life, that story was about how I came to be conceived. I was born to be a companion to my older brother. My brother died by suicide 2 years before A Good Family was published. He read it in manuscript form and was my biggest booster. He would have turned 60 last week. I ask you to please lift up your glass and join me in toasting my brother and my best friend, Dr. John S. Kim. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. That was gorgeous and funny and heart-wrenching and all of the things that we get from literature, right? The whole complexity of feelings. And I believe you told me before the reading that this was his hockey jersey.
This is hockey jersey from when he was 13.
Yeah. So she's not just a Giants fan, guys. I do realize that you've all chosen to be with us here in rather than sports ball, and I know that is harder for some than others, and I appreciate it. I will understand if you need to check the scores periodically. This is so much fun. Okay, so this is really fun for me to introduce the next author. We met at Litquake 10 years ago, 11 years ago now. In 2010 at the barely published authors reading, and neither of us had published much, hence the barely published, but we were both wearing 1950s cocktail dresses, recognized one another, and she read, I will never forget, a short story that ended with a woman taking a baseball bat to a wall of televisions in Walmart. And I was like, yeah, okay, we're friends. And indeed, we have been ever since. And 10 years later, we both published our first memoir almost simultaneously. So the whole process has been really special. And I'm just utterly delighted by this. So, her debut memoir is Wiving, a memoir of loving and then leaving the patriarchy. Available at the City Lights booth, by the way, along with all of the other books that you'll be hearing from tonight and the authors that you'll be hearing from tonight. Her short stories, poetry, and essays have appeared in Guernica, Electric Literature, The Butter, Cultural Weekly, Joyland, many other places. She was a 2012 MacDowell Fellow. And in 2010, she founded the San Francisco-based literary reading series, Portuguese Artist Colony, which has extended its reach beyond the United States to Portugal, where she currently lives. So she's visiting us all the way from Guimarães, Portugal tonight. Please welcome Caitlin Myer.
Do you mind if I take a minute? Thank you, my dear friend. And I fantasized about reading at City Lights, and the first time I came to San Francisco, probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and I fantasized about reading at Straight No Chaser 10 years ago. So this is all of the fantasies, and I'm going to read something from my memoir, and all you need to know is I grew up Mormon in Provo, Utah, and this is when I was 16 years old, and I was sneaking out my bedroom window every night to spend the night with my boyfriend at the party house. One night, Boris is early, waiting outside in his truck. I can see his headlights through the scrub oak. I don't wait for the hall light to switch off. I climb out and jump into the truck. We coast silently down the hill. It's quiet at the party house, just the two of us. We get high and watch Repo Man in his basement. I climb in my bedroom window the next morning, put on my nightgown, unlock the door, and there is Dad, waiting. I knocked on your door last night, said Dad. Where have you been? Oh, there it is. I'd been saying to my friends that I'm leading a double life, like a movie, secretary by day, crime fighter by night. But yeah, sure, high school kid by day, all night at the party house. But now's my chance to come clean. I've been talking big about wanting to be treated like an adult, so let's do it. Let's give all of us a chance. I tell Dad I'm on the pill. We're sitting at the dining table, a long, dark wooden slab big enough for the whole family to sit together. Dad's at one end. I'm in the corner seat facing him. His blue eyes go wet. I'm glad, he says quietly. You're taking precautions. Tears crawl down his cheeks. I made Dad cry. I'm going to have to tell your mother, he says. Now my insides seize up. No, I think. I take his hand. He's already getting up, gives my hand an abstracted squeeze, disappears down the hall. I will describe the sound that came from the bedroom as operatic. But the truth is, I won't remember. Nothing. I can see Dad's blue eyes tearing up as we talk at the table, but I cannot retrieve Mom in this moment. Maybe there's no sound at all. Mom gulps in and smothers all sounds in the house, even the push of blood in my ears, silenced. Depression is anger turned inward. Mom has been wishing to obliterate herself for years. She could not protect me when I was 7 and molested. She could not protect me at 12 when I was assaulted at BYU. I had my first pelvic exam in the dark, in secret, because I did not believe she could weather the knowledge that I'd been raped. I thought I was ready now. I thought the worst was over. But learning I had sex on purpose was too much for her. Her self-hatred is now unsheathed and shining. I can see it in her face, but I can't retrieve the sound that goes with it. Now father and mother are in the living room. Dad jolted into a performance of discipline. Too late, too late. He slaps me across the face, then muscles me over his knee and spanks me. We're all in this trailer trash opera now. All of us wailing and sobbing. We catch our breath, look away from each other. Dad says they need to talk. I am to wait in my room. I do not wait. I get dressed and start walking out the back door through the mudroom. I am blind and trying to escape. I'm on the back steps when I feel my father's hand heavy on the back of my neck. He pulls as though he's going to lift me by the scruff like I'm a kitten, and I clatter back inside. We've been talking about Heritage School, says Dad. Mom appears to be past words. Her face is, what? Immobile. A wall. Terrible to look at. I can't look. Heritage School is a reform school, a particular kind of bad teenager school. Beefy guys kidnap you from your house in the middle of the night, drag you off to Heritage. The ACLU perpetually had several suits going against the school for abuse. Okay, I say now to my parents. What's the alternative? Well, says Dad, you could marry him. All right, I say. I'll marry him. We load into the car. I sit in front between my parents, escorted like a child bride with a pissant dowry. As we drive to the party house, Mom speaks. You're not a murderer, she says. What she means is, you're right next door to one. What she means is, she has failed utterly. What she means is, really, I might as well be a murderer. What she means is, I've killed her. I know her this well. I know everything she means. All the times I thought I was protecting her, I was protecting myself from her. We arrive at the party house. The lead singer from Boris's band is on the front lawn. He watches us pull up, and through the windshield I see him mouth 2 words. Oh shit. He disappears into the house. A few minutes, then Boris appears, looking rumpled, his long curls still shaped to the pillow. Well, we'd been up all night, getting high and watching Repo Man. He gets into the back seat. Mom and Dad sit iron-faced on either side of me. I look into the rearview mirror. His eyes are open, wide, on me. Dad keeps his hands on the wheel and proposes to my boyfriend. Yes, says Boris. He looks at me in the rearview mirror. Now he's crying. Teen love. You can say Dad has statutory hanging over his head all you want, but this is love. As far as we know how to do it, 19 and 16, true love. Boris is sincere. Since we've been dating, he's been showing up on my front porch all scrubbed up, did his best to wash away his cigarette halo, but all he managed was to smell like cigarettes and soap. He believes he is ready to make a marriage. I am not. But my options have narrowed to this. If it takes hitching a ride on a boy's heels, I'll do it and get free of my tar pit of a home, divorce sweet Boris in a headspin, soon to be a 16-year-old divorcee, and just watch the blaze I'll leave in my wake. And so, from the back seat of a station wagon, Boris says yes, and like that, we're engaged. Dad lays out the plan. We cannot get married until Boris can show he's ready to support me. I don't know what picture my parents are carrying in their heads. Dad didn't want to know, didn't want to look as I grew and wanted and lopsided my way into personhood. He doesn't know who I am, and Mom sees only sin in my face, so they are acting out this silly throwback spectacle. They will fumble the two of us into some Leave It to Beaver teen playhouse where hubby brings home the bacon and I'm surely knocked up by 17. It's all over now. They failed, and their last-ditch gift is stuffing me into a parody of Domestic Idol. Every other Sunday, he comes to our house for a financial planning meeting with Dad. This is as grim as you picture it. Boris is shined up in his button-down shirt and good jeans tied around his skinny hips, hair corralled into a ponytail. It kills me. It's the best he can do. He and Dad sit at a corner of the dining room table while I chew my cuticles and look off into space. I am there as a reminder, this is why we're here. I have no other role. He has no job, but I do. Der Wiener Schnitzel, okay, but it isn't nothing. Correction, I had a job. Dad escorts me to the Red Doghouse and waits in the car while I quit. Dad strong-arming Boris into a job while I'm forced to quit mine because, again, it has to be the guy who's the breadwinner in this parental fantasy. I'm under house arrest anyway, can't be trusted to go to work on my own. My best friend Anika calls and I hear the other extension pick up when I do. Mom and Dad want me to know they're listening in. Dad takes me to school to pick up my lesson, takes tests. Aside from this, I rattle around the house. I read, I do homework, I think about what I've done. This is my glorious engagement. Thank you so much.
All the glasses, all the glasses. The woman of many eyeballs and many stories. The fabulous Caitlin Myer. Boy, am I glad you got out of that window. My goodness. All right, so next up is an author that I have long admired, though I have only gotten to know her a little bit recently. All I know so far, but this is a very important fact, is that if you get one strong one, maybe 2 drinks in her, she lays down sick puns, like serious puns. And I feel like that's really important. She's a columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle and the author of the bestseller A River of Stars and Deceit and Other Possibilities, and New York Times Editor's Choice. A National Endowment for the Arts Literature Fellow. She has also received a Rona Jaffe Foundation Writers Award, the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature, and a Steinbeck Fellowship in Creative Writing, as well as awards from the Society of Professional Journalists and the Asian American Journalists Association, among others, because that's not enough. She has taught most recently at the Warren Wilson MFA program and Sewanee Writers Conference. Her novel, Forbidden City, is forthcoming. It sounds amazing, and I think she might be reading from that tonight. Yes. Please welcome Vanessa Hua.
So this is for Alia. Vallejo! Never forget. That was amazing, Anne and Caitlin. It's an honor to be here tonight reading with you both, as well as Roberto, Maggie, and Alia, who is just such a wonderful curator. A huge thanks to Jack and Jane and all the hardworking volunteers. Yes, and to Vesuvio Café and to City Lights Books. The last year and a half has reminded us how precious it is to be able to gather like this. It's really emotional. And thanks to all of you for coming out tonight. Doesn't it feel fantastic? So just remember to dig deep and fill those donation buckets. So I will be reading from Forbidden City, which is coming out next April. Years ago, a teasing glimpse of documentary footage inspired me. It was a photo of the jowly Chairman Mao surrounded by giggling young women who were dressed in tight sweaters and Peter Pan collars. It turned out the chairman was a fan of ballroom dancing and young women who partnered with him on the dance floor and in the bedroom. When I looked for more information, I didn't find much. In his memoir, the chairman's physician said it was the highest honor of their lives for these women, the most uplifting, exciting, exhilarating experience they would ever know. I knew it had to be more complicated than that. And I wanted to tell a story that fell outside of the official record, told through the eyes of one of these teenagers. The scene opens on the day she leaves her village. Forbidden City. At dawn, Ma filled our wooden tub with hot water. She hadn't bathed me in years and wouldn't have done so again until my wedding day. A few meters away, my sisters slumbered. Later, I'd wonder if they might have been pretending, their parting gift to offer me the privacy I never had here. Ma squatted behind me and poured ladles of water over my head, the scent of dust and sweat rising off in the steam. The drops trickled down my nape, my shoulders, my chest, every part of me cherished. I leaned into her hands. My breathing became ragged, and I felt her trembling through my body until we were both shaking. "Little May," she murmured. When I tried to turn around, she gripped my shoulders. The water in the tub had gone lukewarm, and I shivered, the hairs raised on the back of my neck and arms. "Ma?" I asked. She didn't answer. She dried me in circling strokes, her hands slowed as if to delay our parting. It was the tenderness I'd always craved from her. Though she must have heard the fear in my voice, she couldn't face me. Not then, maybe not ever again. She would no longer warn me about fox fairies, shapeshifters who roam the twilight to lure travelers, of disappeared girls, runaway or raped, kidnapped or killed. She knew that she had no choice but to give me up, I now see, and didn't want me thinking about the dangers ahead. In that moment, though, I hardened against her, against my fear and my anger. She couldn't help me, and I didn't need her. The picture of the chairman on the wall seemed to nod to me in the flickering light. He alone would protect me on this journey. Ma helped me step into pants and a tunic that she had patched and pounded clean in the river. She braided my hair into a coil. I gave in to the gentle tugging and to the mesmerizing firelight, hoping that I would be transformed like the braid, intricate and beautiful and strong as a model revolutionary. Shifting my eyes, I tried to hold still to keep from disturbing my mother's work. It was an hour spent on me alone for what seemed like the first time in my life. I was bound for the world where the revolution quickened, and I might find others like me, where my dreams might be recognized and accepted, and my worth wasn't measured only in the sons I bore. Gazing into my mother's wrinkled face, I realized she'd once been my age, leaving her family to marry a man she'd never met. She didn't know she would endure beatings from her husband, the curse of daughters, the death of sons, and swallow suffering as often as air. If she'd known, would she have left her village? That was how we survived, by not knowing what was ahead. She pressed a wooden cup into my hands, a murky brew that gave off the smell of boiled pond scum. Sipping it, I winced, my tongue curling back on itself. She pushed it towards me again, and I half gagged. "What's this?" I asked. Instead of answering, she handed me a pouch filled with tiny lumps the color of bone, their stench even more intense than what she'd brewed. The earthy scent reminded me of dongguai, the golden flowers and sturdy roots we gathered every autumn. A desperate neighbor had come asking for it after she'd given birth twice within a year. It helped prevent a baby from taking hold. In the last year, after I started my woman's flow, my father began warning me against walking by myself at dusk, to bolt from men who ventured too close. Why, he never said, but I understood. The curves that made me clumsy and set my running off kilter also invited the attentions of men who could ruin me. Drink this every morning, Ma now said. I finished the brew and set down the bowl. Every morning, I repeated, then swirled my tongue against my teeth to get rid of the sour, bitter taste. The party's jeep arrived with a groan and a rattle. My sisters stirred and then went still. As the hen squawked, Ba climbed off the bed, ladled me a bowl of porridge, and dropped in thick slices of salted turnips. I ate while standing, holding the bowl close to my face. He did too. My father's fingers were the finest part of him, nimble whether mending a basket or plucking a radish. As a teenager, he'd left for the provincial capital to make his fortune. Although he'd wanted to work in a textile factory, he returned a year later, missing his little finger, a failure that still defined him and our family and in the village. I was used to the stump, but his long fingers curved around the bowl now seemed lonely, his hand missing its smallest part. He turned away and coughed, wiping at his mouth. My family never said anything about his cough, yet another ailment among us that lingered and festered. Like the sores that never quite healed, the scratch that persisted, the irritation in our eyes that went on for so long we'd forgot that we lived any other way. I stared at his hand, the smear of blood undeniable. Yet when I looked up, he wordlessly ordered me to ignore it. I set down my bowl, unable to finish more than a few bites. Difficult as this life was, it was all I had ever known. When Ma brushed down stray hairs at the crown of my head, my resolve disappeared, and the urge to cling to my parents overwhelmed me. Ba lifted my elbow to lead me to the door. Gentle, not rough, this gesture gave me the strength to leave. Thank you.
Oh, there's a book I cannot wait for. I'm so excited for that. Okay, so we're halfway through the evening's reading. I can't believe it. It feels really quick. I'm going to have us take a short break, primarily, so that you can shop at City Lights. Please support your local bookseller and your local authors. So, yes, so Caitlin at City Lights Books has a booth here. All of the authors tonight will, of course, be more than happy to sign your copies. And please get a drink. Enjoy yourselves. Tip your servers and your bartenders generously. Everybody is working as hard as they possibly can. 10 minutes, not a second more. So this has been really great so far, and I just want to say, again, I suppose I'm repeating myself, but it is extremely filling to the heart and the lungs, the soul, all of the bodily and not bodily cavities to actually communicate with real live humans. We're all a little awkward. I feel particularly awkward in this moment. I don't know why I'm talking about bodily cavities, but it's like completely awkward. But you know, chalk it up to the pandemic. And to begin with, we're basement cases. We're writers. We spend a lot of time indoors, not talking to anybody but ourselves. So awkward to begin with, and awkward ongoing. And I'm going to make it more awkward, in fact, by introducing myself. Okay. Thank you. I'll keep the introduction mild, but I feel like we're having a little bit too much fun here, so I'm going to read you something really depressing, and try to let's bring this down a notch, because I feel like too much fun. We're going to go home just sugared out, and then the next week is going to be a complete disaster. So we have to be a little bit miserable while we're having fun, or else. Yeah, I'm just looking out for you. Yeah, so this might be half entertaining, and then will be half depressing, because that's how I roll. So my book Home Baked came out in the middle of the pandemic. Thank you. And I've done a crushing amount of readings over Zoom, half dressed in pajamas. From here down. But this is my first time reading from Home Baked since it's been published in person, and thank you. and will probably also be the last time, because I'm working on a new book and I'm really sick of this material. But I wanted to read from it once to real live human beings. So, and you're it. Okay, so my book is about the first high-volume cannabis edibles business in San Francisco. It started in the 70s. By the time I was born, my folks were trafficking upward of 10,000 brownies per month all throughout the city, through all the subcultures, and then it evolves into the AIDS crisis. So I'm going to read an excerpt that's about the before times in the Castro, formerly known as Eureka Valley, and what that was. And then an excerpt that is about the after times. In San Francisco, we talk a lot about, what the techie invasion has done to the city and all of the changes. But those of us who've been here a little bit longer remember that there was a greater and more tragic change. And so that's what I'm going to depress the shit out of you all about right now. I'll start with the fun stuff. It was an energy thing, Sean Van Cortlandt tells me. It was something living and breathing, something really powerful. Sean worked at a men's clothing store on Castro called City Island Dry Goods. It would be literally a buzz. Late Friday afternoon, what I call the coconut wireless would start up like jungle drums beating. Today's the day for the brownie lady, the brownie lady, the brownie lady. And then it was like, she's up the street, she's up the street. And you'd be running around the store, going to friends, how much do you want? How much are we gonna buy this week? Then she would come in wearing a big purple poncho with a bag strapped around her chest like Pancho Villa. We'd chat, and then she'd go off to make someone else happy. I asked my mom to recount her Eureka Valley sales run and get a 45-minute answer. She sold at coffee houses, hair salons, sex clubs, novelty shops, florists, delis, bookstores, hardware stores, luggage stores, pet supply shops, chiropractors, bakeries, real estate offices, travel agencies, bathhouses, and myriad restaurants, bars, and discos. An editor-in-chief of Drummer magazine, Jack Fitcher, recalls that she was like a milkman making deliveries. By 1977, gay men had so thoroughly claimed the 12 blocks around Castro Street that you could almost forget it had ever been otherwise. But this was new. For generations, Eureka Valley had been a quiet, working-class district of Irish, German, and Scandinavian families. A couple of low-key gay bars had settled in during the 1960s. Then four appeared all at once in the summer of 1971. Two lesbians bought the Twin Peaks Tavern on the corner of Castro and 17th Streets and quietly made history. Likely the first gay bar in the nation with plate glass windows, the goings-on visible from the sidewalk. Eureka Valley had been gradually emptying since the mid-1960s as blue-collar jobs shifted from the waterfront and city center to the suburbs. There were vacancies, and gay businesses cropped up like wildflowers in spring. Eureka Valley became a world unto itself. It was unique in that it mimicked an all-American small town, but with a disproportionate population of young men in tight jeans. Mainstream dailies ran articles on the area's growing economic and political clout. A trend emerged of same-sex couples buying Victorians in disrepair and refurbishing them with fresh paint jobs and refinished floors. By 1977, the area looked less blue-collar and more like the Castro of today. Clean and well-kept, cheerfully painted, and expensive. Poet Aaron Shurin described it as the place where gay men came to live out their bourgeois fantasies, which didn't mean they hadn't come to party. The men of our dreams are on the streets every single day, a 20-something-year-old Minnesota transplant named Mark Abramson wrote in his diary. Just waiting to be unwrapped and experienced on the spot. I'll never get through them all. At 2 a.m., when the bars closed by California law, crowds surged into the street, dispersing between discos, sex clubs, and bathhouses, all-night diners, and cruisy parks. Music pounded through the hours like a ticking clock. When liquor sales resumed at 6 a.m., bars filled again, even on weekdays. This was a far cry from the sleepy residential neighborhood of a few years before. Eureka Valley had changed so drastically that the name no longer fit. Newspapers, both gay and straight, waffled over what to call it. The Castro Corridor? Eureka Village? Sometimes just the Village. Harvey, Milk, leaned towards Castro Village. The name pinballed for months before settling on the Castro. Residents could stay right there and have everything they needed without ever spending a dime or without ever spending time, or money in the straight world. A whole neighborhood, Randy Schultz writes, where it was safe to swish down the street. Now Sticky Fingers Brownies, that's my folks' business, was there too. That run was huge, my mom tells me. It was the hugest. And I was really good at it. And I did it in high heels half the time, and pregnant. So and now I'm gonna skip ahead to this is about 10 years in the future, and has changed a bit. So this is the depressing part, of course. Circa 1989, I would say. I remember the dismay I felt as a child at seeing loving couples who'd been together in my earliest memories split in half. Barry lost Gino, his musical collaborator and life partner. Sean lost his beautiful Abel and never got over it. Decades later, he still goes into seclusion for weeks around the anniversary of Abel's death. My mom often describes the phenomenon of the last man standing. How out of a big group of close friends, there would be one guy left alive to carry all the memories, all the guilt. It's just, difficult, says Lou Briasco, a longtime Brownie customer, because I didn't expect to be here now. For 34 years, he ran the same tiny luggage shop on Market Street that he and a friend, now deceased, opened in 1982. Lou was diagnosed HIV positive in the mid-1980s and thought for sure he was a goner. But he survived and kept surviving while the people in his social circle died. Lou, who lived with his dog in a small apartment above the shop, kept the business going mostly to stay busy. Lou's lease came up in 2016. Faced with the inevitable rent hike, he finally decided to close. He says he's lost more than 50 friends to AIDS. That's the number that seems to be most common among the survivors I know. 50 loved ones lost. Problems arose that you might not imagine, like the superabundance of stuff, antiques and knickknacks passing from friend to lover to friend, collections growing exponentially as more people died. The last man standing would find himself buried beneath an avalanche of keepsakes. When Wayne Whelan arrived in San Francisco in 1986, he was amazed at the quality furniture and antiques abandoned in dumpsters and on street corners. In need of cash, he began collecting and reselling found treasures in flea markets. Among his new neighbors was Val Duvall, an occasional drag performer. Oh, I completely lost myself. Okay, an occasional drag performer who ran a chaotic custom dress shop out of his cluttered home. Wayne rented a window in Val's space to sell some of his antiques, and the two became close friends. When Val's health gave out, Wayne helped nurse him through his painful last weeks and ended up inheriting the shop, which he renamed Therapy. For years, Wayne gathered and sold the beautiful trinkets and stylish furniture left behind by the dead, eventually moving into a larger space on Valencia Street, still there. Some objects passed through Therapy multiple times when customers who'd bought them also succumbed to the plague. At estate sales, Wayne would find himself staring at the peculiar mementos kept at bedsides near the end. Why this button or this teacup, he'd wonder. What was important about this? A day came when Wayne couldn't take it anymore. His store was full of ghosts, everything saturated in heartbreak. He gave up on antiques and switched to new merchandise. Dan Clowry, Dan Clowry had been a subcontractor, which is to say that Sticky Fingers would bring large quantities of brownies to the deli that he worked at, the Village Deli in the Castro. So customers would bring large quantities of these brownies, and he would sell them out of the deli case. Dan Clowry left the Village Deli after a change of ownership. When a good friend fell ill, Dan became his caretaker. The disease kept coming for more friends until Dan was running himself ragged trying to help them all and still support himself. Finally, he figured, what the hell, and went back to school to become a nurse. He helped launch the AIDS unit at Mount Zion Hospital, which soon shifted to UCSF. Back in the warehouse days, Dan and Kissy would sell 2 gross of Sticky Fingers brownies while Mare did her Castro run. Now Dan kept a reserve of brownies in his freezer to sneak onto the AIDS ward for patients who were wasting. They came up with a medication that was supposed to stimulate appetite, he recalls, but because it was new, they were being very cautious with the dosing. And I was like, this doesn't do anything, just give them pot. He and some other nurses also let patients smoke weed out of the windows of their hospital rooms. We were lucky we had windows that opened, he says. We got some complaints now and then, but I didn't care. I ask if the doctors on the ward knew about this. Dan feels sure they did, though it was something no one spoke about. What was pot gonna do? Dan says. Kill them? Thank you. And I'm just gonna stay right here. So one of the other really cool things that happened during the pandemic, this was early on, like shortly after everything got canceled, and I was still in my like wailing on the carpet phase of things, and I heard about this ad hoc organization called We Love Bookstores, founded by our next reader together with Charlie Jane Anders, and they were holding online events, and this was really in the early days of Zoom in all of our lives, to raise funds for independent bookstores that at that time were totally shut down still and really suffering. And so it was such a cool thing to participate in. It was uplifting to everybody, including myself. It got me off the damn carpet. And I got to know this wonderful person here. So I'm really happy to have her here today. She's the author of the Parents' Choice Gold Medal winning picture book, Also an Octopus, illustrated by Benji Davies, and the young adult novel The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea, which is so beautiful and available at the City Lights booth right here. She lives in Oakland, California with her husband, son, and objectively perfect dog. Her new graphic novel is called The Squad. Please welcome the fabulous Maggie Tokuda-Hall.
I was gonna read a thing about rape culture, but I feel bad following AIDS with rape. Would you guys prefer that I read something else? Because I have something a little more fun to read instead. Okay, all right. I just wanted to check, because that's like a lot. It's a lot to take. So I have launched not one, but 2 books now during this pandemic. So feel free to buy my books out of pity. I will take it. They're both available at City Lights. Squad is largely about rape culture. It's about teenage girls who turn into werewolves at the full moon, find the worst boys they can at parties, and eat them. I highly recommend buying it for the child 14 and up in your life, or yourself if you feel like indulging in some rape fantasy revenge. So I'm going to read you an essay I wrote that is a true story. I pride myself on everything that I write being completely different, so if you hate it, you should still buy my books. So, I'm not a likely candidate for a baking hobby. I can't eat gluten. I'm married to a type 1 diabetic, which is just as big a bummer as you are imagining. In my culinary life, I have come to disregard recipes for being too bossy. So when I picked up baking, it didn't feel just sudden, it felt random. Stolen from a better woman, a woman with no dishes in her sink. First, it was chocolate cake. It was pretty, but too simple. Then came eclairs, then macarons. Hundreds of them. Pale pastel treats topped with edible gold leaf or glitter, beautiful and intricate, a worthy technical challenge to cut my teeth on. Too hard for most people, but not too hard for me. They're temperamental. That's what every recipe says. They crack, collapse, are prone to fail. Search results are dense with guides for troubleshooting or macronage. I loved making them immediately. Later, I realized the timing of this new obsession was no coincidence. The first time I made macarons was shortly after a miscarriage. The macarons also failed. I'm sorry, I think that's really funny. I folded the batter far too many times, added too much rose water, too much dye. They tasted like soap. They emerged from the oven shriveled and flat, no feet, as the ruffles at the bottom edge of the shells are called, a result gleaned from proper baking. I scraped the delicate pink remains into the trash. I was undaunted. We started fertility treatment in the summer of 2018. Tests made it clear that my husband and I would never get pregnant naturally. Ever. I wasn't surprised by the news. There were no obvious clues. It was just something I knew, the same way that I knew I was in love or that a recipe called for too much salt, what my mother calls women's intuition. I don't call it that. I didn't go into treatment with any misgivings. The fertility center we chose boasted special care for women of color, glowing Yelp reviews, and a doctor educated at both Harvard and Yale. It did not occur to me to enter this arrangement with my antennae up. And even now, if that feels naive, it doesn't feel foolish. We should be able to trust professionals with the care of our bodies. Pregnancy is going to be hard for you, the doctor told me, a signal that I was being too precious, too fussy, a gentle rebuke. I mistook it for candor. It was the beginning of a process wrought with lies by omission, choices made on my behalf but not in my best interest. My chief concern that day, the day of our first consultation, was all the medication. It was so much, but we plowed ahead anyway. Sure, this would be hard. All pregnancies are hard. That was okay. I told myself, I can handle hard. I took a long and extreme list of medications leading up to the surgery in which my eggs would be extracted. For the entire week leading into the procedure, I was in so much pain, like menstrual cramps, but more insistent, sharper, that my life was suddenly limited. No coffee, no sex, no alcohol, no exercise, no sudden movements. These were the rules. I was constantly nauseated, forever teetering on the edge of vomit. Is this normal? I would ask. All bodies are different, the doctor would tell me. The subtext was, something is wrong with yours. Later, another doctor would name what happened to me, ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, an injury caused by over-medication. My ovaries had been pushed into such artificial productivity that they could not bear the weight of their own fruit. My surgery date was bumped up because I was growing so many eggs. I was deeply uncomfortable, but I could handle that. I could handle that for a baby. Macarons are essentially a French meringue with almond flour, powdered sugar folded into them. Their reputation is that they're difficult, but I'd argue they just require extra attention. Get to know your oven, learn if it runs hot. Fewer folds of your macaronage are better, but too few and they'll be misshapen. Don't bake on an especially humid day if you can help it. Macarons are not hard, they're just particular. No one has been more pleased by my new hobby than my friends. They reap the benefits of my obsession, eyes closed as they chew, as if they have to ward away all else in order to fully reckon with such indulgence. This is the chief delight in baking macarons, the sharing. Pass the plate around, bear witness to the pleasure. All that hard work, piping, filling, decorating, is worth it in an instant. I felt it as soon as the medications wore off. Pain so acute it pushed a moan from my throat. I'd been sitting on our couch when I realized that I needed to get to bed. I needed to get into bed that fucking instant, or I would never get there. The pain would only get worse, and I would be stuck, and there would be no respite. My husband was out walking the dog. I staggered down the short hallway alone, moaning and weeping, my hand dragging along the wall for support until I finally reached the bed. We called the doctor. More meds, he said. I took them. When I was 17, I had a spinal tap. I didn't cry. When I was 16, a car accident left me in a neck brace for 3 weeks, and when I cried, it was from shock, not pain. In my college softball career, when I took an unexpected line drive directly to my face, I didn't cry. I laughed, which I'm told is a common reaction to the concussion I had just sustained. So when I say that the pain only got worse, when I say that it was the only time I've wept solely from pain, and I say this now having actually given birth to a child, still this is true, I mean it. It was the worst pain of my life. It was ovarian torsion, which is when the ovary twists, cutting off blood flow from the body. I was put on an IV drip of painkillers again just to manage. I was bedridden for 2 full weeks. Is this normal? My husband asked. Some women just handle pain differently, the nurse replied. I know, boo. Boo them, they suck. The subtext again, isn't it hard for everyone? The subtext again, it isn't hard for everyone, it's just hard for me. The problem was not the treatment, the problem was that I was weak. My resentment was as precise as any recipe. Macarons require order. They create pleasure. They are delicate and lovely like a baby's toes. I can take care with them that was not taken with my body. The months of attempts with that doctor left my body raw and aching. It felt as though I'd been evicted from it and that it had been trashed in my absence. That feeling of being violated in absentia wasn't new to me. It brought me back to years earlier in my bed the morning after being sexually assaulted. I'd woken up with the kind of pounding hangover one expects after drinking to the point of sickness. What I didn't expect to see was him, a trusted friend, but not a chosen sexual partner. He told me we'd hooked up and that he'd seen, quote, everything I had to offer. I know, gross. I went to the bathroom after he left and found drops of thin red blood of injury on the tissue. My body had been trashed and I hadn't even been there while it happened. I wish I could say that I put a stop to the treatment I was receiving from that doctor, but it wasn't me who raised the flag. It was my husband. He demanded we get a second opinion. Doctors are reluctant to critique each other. At first, she assumed we remembered things incorrectly, but my husband is a thorough note-taker, and slowly over the course of the phone call, it became clear that all of this had been unnecessary. Because the fertility issues lie in my husband's body and not mine, medicating me at all had been a choice made to ease scheduling for the doctor's office. It did more to hinder our chances than improve them. But having tightly scheduled cycles allows for more patience, and more patience means more money. It was terrible, and worst of all, it didn't need to happen. My trust had been betrayed again. All that suffering was for nothing. Medical mistreatment around fertility is undoubtedly more common than we realize, just as sexual assault is more common than many believe. We trust our doctors just as we trust men, historically the people with authority. We trust that it is worth it. I couldn't make a baby, so I baked a bunch of cookies is too simple. I was raped, so I made a bunch of cookies is also reduction to the point of absurdity. But with no precious tiny shoes to buy, no birth announcements to send, no baby bump to show, I posted endless pictures of these confections, delicate and precise. That I would be drawn to macarons and baking with all of its ladylike connotations makes sense to me in a way. My body could not achieve its sole feminine purpose, but I could master this specifically femme art. It was a gentle hobby, interwoven with a dedication to aesthetic, to details that lend beauty. It is done with the express purpose of bringing other people happiness, a gesture devoid of self, the ultimate maternal posture. Maybe I fancied myself that I was the giving tree to a baby who was never born. The best pain, we're told, is the pain that creates something beautiful. Pearls and cherry blossoms, childbirth. So what is there to do in the wake of pain that makes nothing? There was no result from my treatment, no baby with delicate toes with slowly blinking eyes. There is no bright side to rape. There is only me, and a recipe that can be endlessly iterated. Me and the beauty I can control. Thanks.
I'm so glad you didn't change your material at the last minute because that was gorgeous. That was gorgeous. That's gonna stay with me. Damn. Wow. So that was fabulous, huh? Anyway, Maggie Tokuda-Hall. Buy her books. Our last author of the night, and again, before we do this, I want to thank everybody for coming here and staying here, and you all look so attentive in your seats, and I just can't tell you how much it means to us. I can't tell you, especially after this long absence. It's really heartfelt appreciation. Thank you. Our last author of the night is one of the masterminds of my favorite literary scandal ever. And y'all are just gonna have to look it up, but I love it. Yeah, it's juicy, it's good, it ends well. Look it up. He's the author of Unforgetting, a memoir of revolution and remembrance. It was picked by the New York Times as an editor's choice and also hailed as groundbreaking by the same very difficult paper to crack. He is the recipient of a reporting grant from the Pulitzer Center. His essays and reports from around the world have appeared in numerous publications, including Guernica, the Boston Globe, Foreign Policy Magazine, The Guardian, Los Angeles Times, and many more. He works out of the Writer's Grotto in San Francisco, his hometown, as well as mine. He is a force to be reckoned with. Please welcome Roberto Lovato.
Wow. Thank you. I am so happy to be with you tonight, to see friendly faces and new faces, and to actually bring the word back to the street where it belongs. We just need a little fire here, and we can return to our origins and start challenging the hegemony of this online shit. So, thank you to Litquake for your wonderful work on behalf of all of us. And City Lights, the only bookstore in my childhood that I never stole a book from, including the library. So that's how much love and respect I've always had for City Lights. And I'm sacrificing a lot to be with you tonight because when I watch the Giants, they win. And I'm fucking not watching right now, and I'm worried. But it's a good cause, the cause of the word, the fellowship of the word. My book, Unforgetting, is in about half of it is in San Francisco, in fact. I was born in the Mission and raised with a couple of people who work here, like Alia, this guy here, Antonio. And, part of it takes place in El Salvador and Texas, where I've crossed 2,500 mile, and 30 years of war, genocide, mass graves, and narco violence. And so I wanted to understand at one level, and what's what the book is about, is what makes El Salvador and the United States the most violent countries on earth, right? Because the United States statistically isn't, but in culture it is. It's the mass producer of violence extraordinaire. At another level, it's a father and son story. One is about like the violence of la patria, and we've talked a lot about patriarchy tonight. The other part of my book is about the padre hijo, father and son. So I connect it to the way shit travels downward from the state to our families. And so the other part is about all the terror, but really, when I actually finished the book, I realized all that heavy stuff was really about the diamonds, the rubies, the castles in the sky, the gorgeous things that helped me survive all the things, the tenderness that survived the terror. So really, that's kind of what the book's about at a deeper level. So there's There's a lot of humor, there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of goodness, in addition to the stuff that the white reviewers said, God, it's a heavy book. So I was gonna originally read something about San Francisco because I'm from here and my first time I get to read in open air like this in my hometown. But I changed my mind. I said, fuck that, man. I have my favorite part of the book that I've read a dozen times. Some of you have probably heard it, and I'm gonna read it again because it's the first time in person. So, but I will bring in a little bit of the San Francisco culture. Where in 1990, I'm a 20-something dumbass living in the Mission. I meet a woman named G. I fall in love with her. G is a former explosives expert and guerrilla leader with the FMLN guerrillas. And she became a diplomat. She was a diplomat when I met her. And we fell in love, but being a 20-something dumbass, I didn't know what to do when love was put before me. And so I'd gone to El Salvador and been moved by what I saw, and I decided I was gonna go back and join the guerrillas myself as a US citizen, and because it was the right thing to do at the time. And so I hadn't let G know, so I'm letting her know. I'm building up to letting her know over in the Mission or what's happening. So what she's telling, I'm easing into it by talking about her weird obsession with opera. Yeah. So why is this really cool-ass guerrillera woman a lover of Carmina Burana? So yes, she said, the government radio played Carmina Burana to mock us. So it became the music we used to remember our martyrs, our música de combate. Yes, you have to avoid romanticismo, base romanticism, which is dangerous. But we must, by all means possible, have the espíritu romántico, including through opera. How else can we do such intrepid things without being romanticos in some sense? At Berkeley, Professor June Jordan not only wrote unapologetically political poetry, but she'd also taught us the work of Claribel Alegría, Roque Dalton, and other Salvadoran poet warriors who provided generations the spiritual sustenance needed to face the apocalyptic violence there. June Jordan taught us that our love of people and our political beliefs were inseparable. The personal was, in fact, political, a truth G so beautifully embodied. After a minute or two, my mind returned from its lofty romantic musing. There waiting for me on the ground was G, and the hard truth I was leaving to El Salvador soon, I still hadn't told her. As much as I wanted to spend more time with G, I burned to go back to El Salvador. Yes, experiences in Chalatenango had moved me, but also my involvement with G and the Salvadoran revolutionaries called out to me in operatic ways to take on the ongoing struggle against US-backed fascism, continuing the work of the poet warriors and revolutionaries I'd read at Berkeley, anti-fascists like Orwell, the Lincoln Brigades, Paul Robeson, Hemingway, and warrior poets like Muriel Rukeyser and Gioconda Belli. The opportunity to be a part of such a movement made me feel more alive. Look, G, I began, I think the world of you. In the little time since we've met, you've become a pretty great friend. Uh-huh. Yeah, you're a great person, a person I have a lot of respect for, and I'm learning a lot from. Yes, but I made a decision. I'm going to El Salvador and not sure when I'm coming back. I see. So you don't have any idea when you'll be back? No, I don't. She paused, then she started crying. After a couple of minutes of tears, the resolute G returned. I won't forget you, Tito, she said. Please don't forget me. Fuck, she's not making this easy by making it so easy. Unsure what to do, I remained silent and simply said to myself, adios, G. But when I got home, I cried. So I left and I joined the urban commandos in El Salvador, and I am in a clandestine safe house pondering what the fuck I'm doing there. And so this is like afterwards, so I'm in El Salvador. I got my own shock months later as I was laying in my apartment in San Salvador, sipping some cola champagne, one of those piss gold soft drinks every Latin American country has. I was reflecting on how much things had changed for me since leaving San Francisco the year before, when the phone rang. an unusual occurrence given that I lived in a place that few except the compas, the compañeros, knew about. Bueno, may I help you? Hola, Beto. The sweet, silky voice sounded familiar, but before my heart leaped, I paused. G? I asked. Yes. Where are you? San Salvador. What? Yes, I'm here. You're here? I said, my voice reaching higher octaves of disbelief. Yes. I remained silent for a moment, stunned at the fact that this woman who publicly represented the FMN guerrillas had somehow managed to get into the country. The Salvadoran government had her and other publicly identified members of the FMLN on their list of people to detain on site at any airport or border crossing. G could be killed if they caught her here. What are you doing here? I asked. I'm here on some important business and need to speak with you, she said in her trademark no-nonsense tone. Sure, when and where do you want to meet? Let's meet where the light shines, she said, which was code for the Antorchas, an open-air restaurant frequented by the compas. The restaurant had torches placed all around its edges. I wanted to know about this special mission almost as much as I simply wanted to see her. I showered, put on some nice clothes, and armed myself with my secret weapon, Jovan Musk Oil, my preferred cologne. I showed up a little late to find a smiling G there. A white-haired guitarist was playing Ella, a lovely bolero from my mom and pop's era, in front of a couple at a table nearby. G was looking ever the summer beauty in a black flowered dress that hung on her tight body wonderfully. The Salvadoran sun made her round face look especially radiant. Being G, she rocketed us through the niceties, then started in with the reason she'd come. The smell of flat iron beef grilling beneath the thatched palm roof and the fancy blue tropical drinks with little wooden umbrellas in them gave the restaurant on busy Boulevard de los Héroes a suave, intimate beach vibe made stronger by all the antorchas. So, T, she started, I'm here with some important news. How did you get into the country? The compañeros got me some glasses, a wig, and a fake passport, and I came in through the Guatemala border, she said, en voz bajita. Wow, that's pretty gutsy. Noting her need to talk about the mission, I asked, so what brings you here? Well, to be honest, T, you left me in limbo. Huh? In limbo? What do you mean? What the fuck is she bringing this up for? Before you left, she said, when we were getting to know each other in San Francisco, you said we were more than friends. You gave me chocolates, you wrote poetry, and gave me other signs that led me to believe that what you said was true. Well, I guess it's kind of true, I guess, but yet on the other hand, you left things ambiguous, she interjected, like you weren't really sure what we were after such beautiful moments we spent together. Okay, yes, I said, still waiting for the larger mission to reveal itself. You know me, Beto. You know that I like to be clear, said G, sounding like the focused diplomat and explosives expert she was. Yes, you do. You know that I can't stand ambiguity. No, you can't. So I would just tell you, Tito, I'm in love with you and need to know how you feel about me. I've been living with this ambiguity since last year and want you to be clear with me. I can't keep living like this. Uh-oh. That's the fucking mission she came here for? Me? Fuck. Subversive in war turned out also to be subversive in love. My immediate thought, G came to undermine my game plan for macking on lots of women in wartime El Salvador. But I also recognized our shared desire. I kept looking at her in disbelief, and the rush of memories came back to me, walking near my old church, talking about opera, feeling like she liked me for me, despite feeling like a fucked up kid in the mission. Fuck. So I did the obvious thing any red-blooded revolucionario salvadoreño macho would do in such a potentially explosive situation. Excuse me for a second, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Okay, G said in a tone that said, what the fuck? On my way to the bathroom, I walked up to the old guitarist dude playing the music in the restaurant and whispered in his ear. Then I went to the bathroom, combed my curly hair, and washed my face before I came out blasting like I was Michael Corleone entering gangster life at the Bronx Italian restaurant. I strolled back to the table. So, you want an answer? I asked, before standing before her with the guitarist behind me. Here's your answer. The guitar started playing Sabor a Mi. I first learned the lyrics of the classic bolero turned lowrider oldie about the lover's taste when Pop used to play it for Mom. Now I put Pop's Orphic powers to use myself. I started serenading G. The song ended and I said, "There's your answer." She smiled back and got up to put her face close to mine. We paused to inhale each other's breath, and then our lips finally touched. We decided to go to a cheap motel used by sex workers working near Tia Esperanza's house on 5 de Noviembre Street for safety reasons. Early the next morning before dawn, as we floated out of the motel high on new love, we were greeted by the sight of soldiers who were about a block and a half away and coming our way. We turned and walked quickly in the opposite direction, hoping that the taxi or some other vehicle might come in our direction, but there were no cars in sight. An eternity passed before we saw the lights of a vehicle approaching, surely our last opportunity to escape torture and likely death. As the car approached, I prayed, "Please let this be a taxi, please." Finally, the car came close enough so that we could tell it was in fact a taxi. We rushed to it, hopped inside, and sped away back in the opposite direction of the soldiers. Determined not to let the fascist military blues defeat our happiness, G and I decided to go out on another date. We picked a lunchtime stroll near the Criptes office where I was working along Boulevard de los Héroes, San Salvador's main thoroughfare. In the 70s, Rolando and my other friends and I, when we were kids, used to come to Boulevard de los Héroes to ride bumper cars at the arcade, where rich boys and their parents stared at us, trying to figure out why the boy in rich kids' clothes, football shirts, Levi's, and Converse, was in the kids' raggedy clothes and shoes. These were the same friends I tried to teach the words of B.J. Thomas's "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head," the beautiful breezy song I loved from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Now G and I walked down that same boulevard, holding hands, enjoying a dreaming break from all the war shit. A new van with polarized windows pulled up ahead of us. I didn't recognize it. Instinctively, G put her hand on my arm in a gesture of caution. We stopped walking. "Hey, Roberto!" a voice called out as the van door slid open. "Hey," I responded. I took a step toward the van, thinking maybe it belonged to one of my cousin's friends, richer friends. G grabbed my jacket quickly by the shirt. Grabbed me quickly by the shirt. "Do you know who that is?" she asked. "No, but they know my name." I couldn't imagine any sinister dudes doing anything in broad daylight on the busiest street in the country, no less. But G could. "Okay, T," she said in a calculating voice. "At the count of 1, 2, 3, we're gonna run. 1, 2, 3, and with that, with as much speed as we could muster, G and I ran down side streets searching for some cover. We waited behind a parked car on a side street for a while, and then hopped the fence into the backyard of a home, and then another and another, until we reached an abandoned yard with heavy brush to hide in. We stayed kneeling there, holding hands for what seemed like hours, until we felt safe enough to walk outside again. So began our engagement, stitching together fragments of our lives, doing our best to feel safe in love and in war, as we carried forth the law-breaking tradition passed on by the poetic outlaws who preceded us. Thank you.
That's how you end a night. And I don't mean the garbage trucks. These are the hazards of reading in an alley. It is the safest way to do it, but it's not without its difficulties. Hey, I just want to once again thank you all for coming. Please support Litquake. There are going to be donation buckets circulating. It's been a dry year for everybody. So they really could use the help. Please buy our books if you feel so inclined. We're here to sign them. We would appreciate it. And City Lights would appreciate it as well. Tip heavily and keep on drinking because that's how some folks here survive. Most of all, keep reading books, keep loving literature, keep building community. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. And there's there's another like 2 weeks of events. Of Litquake events. Most of them are free, some of them are not. They're all great. Check it out online. Viva Litquake, and thank you again.